Welcome back. The week has been abuzz with what Cambridge Analytica might or might not have done in our elections in 2017 following that expose by Channel 4 in the UK. Tonight we're discussing why that would be an important issue, why it's a fuss, do we have data protection laws, and what it means for democracy in Kenya and in the world in general. Tonight on the show, I'm joined by Tom Wolfe. He's a researcher at Ipsos. Thank you for making the time. Mark Obar is a data scientist, works with us here, and understands quite a bit of what Cambridge Analytica is alleged to have done. But also joining us from the city centre here in Nairobi is Nanjala Nyabola. She's an author. Her book is called Digital Democracy, Analog Politics, How the Internet is Transforming Politics in Kenya. Nanjala, it's good to have you with us on the show. I will come to you in a moment, but Mark, let me start with you here. What's the fuss about this whole story? How big is it? What is Cambridge Analytica supposed to have done in some very layman terms?
Now, from what I've gathered and even watched, the documentary that was broadcast by Channel 4, as Kenyans, first of all, we need to be worried because if all the stuff happened while many people do not know, you know, the major concern is the potential criminal acts that were committed during the entire process of gathering data and distributing information in the same respect. Because you realize that these people, this is a case where technology and politics meet behavioral science. And so merging the two with an intention of manipulating the minds and the knowledge and the wisdom of members of the public, then that is a very serious case.
Okay, let me ask this.
Yeah.
You mentioned criminal.
Yeah.
That might be criminal in the UK, might be criminal in the US, and we don't know. They're still investigating the extent of their involvement. Is any of that even stated, prescribed in any of the laws that we have in the country?
Not really. First of all, we really need to understand that as far as Kenya is concerned, this is quite a new thing. However, it's been there for decades, especially in other countries, especially gathering data for the sake of understanding the voters and making them vote for you. In other countries like the US, the UK, it's been there. It has also been used in marketing. It's also been used in military, where you want to win the hearts and the minds of people. The military in the United States does that. Every now and then in Afghanistan and other hostile countries. But in Kenya, this is quite a new thing. So first of all, I do not think there are adequate laws that would govern that, but that should also inform, or that should give us a reason as a country to really interrogate this matter. And I don't know why politicians or the members of parliament are very silent about it, but I think they really need to interrogate what really happened in essence in terms of the technological applications that were there, and even the theoretical applications in terms of winning the hearts and the minds of people by probably manipulating their conscience and intelligence.
Okay. Tom, you're a researcher. You gather data, for all sorts of reasons, from, political polling to market and data research. At what point do you think, if these allegations turn out to be true, when does it cross the line from propaganda, which is what happens in politics all the time, winning people over with certain ideas, to then crossing professional ethics?
Well, it's a huge topic, and I'm no expert in this area, but let me make a couple of points. First of all, as you suggest in your question, and your earlier question to Mr. Obar, there's a distinction between what's criminal, even in the US or UK, and what is non-ethical. And I should also point out that the work that I do at Ipsos is entirely political. I don't work on the marketing surveys, and that's where they make the real money. So I'm dealing with small change. And I don't mean to correct Mr. Var, but the impression that I got, or I've been getting the last couple of days as this Cambridge Analytica issue has been taking shape, is that the main illegality, I gather, and I stand to be corrected, was that for the Brexit vote in the UK and the Trump campaign, that they took data from Facebook without the permission or even knowledge of, I mean, Facebook is claiming as a company they didn't know about this, and certainly the Facebook users didn't know that all this information about them, which allows for a very, very granular, microscopic fine-tuning of the population, and in this case, the electorate, that can be then put to purposes of what the U.S. Army calls PSYOP, psychological operations, that you were referring to very correctly. Now, I don't think, I mean, I stand to be corrected because I'm not a lawyer. I don't think there's anything wrong or illegal about doing a survey, and if the survey is good enough, and if the analysts are good enough to derive messages or any other campaign, in this case activities, to try to influence voters, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay, just hold that thought. Let's bring in Nanjala Nyabola, who's joining us from the city center. Using data to change audience behavior, in this case to sway the vote politically, is there anything wrong with that? Are we making a fuss about nothing, or should we be worried about these allegations?
I think we should be worried about the allegations that are being leveled at Cambridge Analytica specifically. And the way to really think about this is that it's like three different parts of the puzzle. The first part of the puzzle is the part that we've been talking about, which is the way in which the data was collected. And this part, there's definitely an illegality because European privacy laws prevent people from surreptitiously or covertly collecting information from people. You have to give your express consent for a researcher, for an analyst, for anybody to take your data off of Facebook, and they have to tell you what they're going to use it for. So that's one part of the puzzle, and that is really only because of the high level of privacy laws in Europe that Cambridge Analytica has a problem. They are still not sure whether they've broken the law in the US with regards to data collection, and definitely in Kenya, it's a huge legal lacuna that I think people need to pay attention to. The second part of the puzzle is what Tom has alluded to, which is what do they do with your data once they have it? And there is also another place where we get into murky waters. According to a lot of the people who have been following this case, and certainly in my case, I would say Cambridge Analytica has oversold what they've been able to do with the data. They've been telling people that they're able to really influence and shape voters in a very specific way, that the science is still very much out on psychometrics as an area of practice. And a lot of the experts are saying, well, we're not really sure that they were able to do what they promised. They've overpromised and underdelivered. For me, the third part is the part that's really problematic, and it's all of the political consulting, all of the PR work that's happening alongside all of these psychometrics. So they're able to, in the video that was produced by Channel 4, when they talk about putting information out into the ether and watching it grow, what they're talking about is basically poisoning political discourse and allowing that to run, and then backing it up with all of this data analytics material in order to make it hyper-targeted. So, and I'm not saying that Cambridge Analytica produced this video, they've denied it, but if you recall the Real Raila campaign, it wasn't a blanket campaign. It wasn't, not everybody could see it. It was if you had certain people in your friends network, if you had certain people that, groups that you had liked on Facebook or whatever, that you were able to see that advert. And so the combination of that, the combination of the political consulting, the branding, the messaging that's very focused on emphasizing or developing differences in the political community with this hyper-targeted advertising, to me, that's where you really land in an ethical black hole, and that's really where they're in trouble.
All right, Nanjala, because that is an interesting one you've mentioned. A lot of people, even on social media, asking or stating that those divisions were indeed there in the country to begin with. So was it Cambridge Analytica amplifying that, or did they, in fact, drive a deeper wedge between people of different political affiliations? Isn't that the question here?
So Yes, and my reading of their work, not just in Kenya, but also in the United States and also in Nigeria, that was what their brand, in fact, they were very proud of it. That's their brand identity. That's what they do. They come into a specific political context. They find the things that divide people, and they emphasize those divisions in such a way that people who believe in a negative thing, in Nigeria, they were very open about the fact that it was a lot of Islamophobia. It was a lot of, if Buhari wins, then he's going to turn Nigeria into a Sharia state. And, you know, Nigeria is very much divided along their Muslim and Christian population. As Tom rightfully said, we still don't know the specifics of what they did in Kenya. But if you look at the campaign of negative advertising that happened in 2017 and 2013, the memes that went viral on WhatsApp especially, but also on Facebook, you're talking about reminding people and re-emphasizing the things that tear us apart rather than the things that bring us together, which is the fact that we needed, for example, effective government, a good response to a drought, a good response to, you know, policy-level conversations. It distracts from policy-level conversations.
Okay, all right. Tom, you wanted to, and then we'll come to you, Mark. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that very detailed and useful contribution. I just want to make two quick points. I'm not aware, and perhaps somebody else is, that anybody in the working with the NASA campaign lodged a complaint about that video. I did contact a senior official at the National Cohesion Integration Commission. They said it was never brought to their attention. But if it was so potentially destabilizing and dangerous to the extent that it was circulated, it wasn't kept secret, it would surprise me if nobody in the Raila campaign made a complaint about it. Now, it's possibly they did, and I'm not aware. That's just a question. Second, I would add that leaving aside the question of the impact on voters, and this question has been brought up with regard to the Donald Trump campaign in the U.S., with all of the very, very, I can say, of course, I'm a member of the Democratic Party, so I'm biased, but very toxically hostile output in the Trump campaign directed at Hillary Clinton. And that raises the question for me, if Hillary Clinton had won that election with, 3 electoral votes or something like that, would she have been able to rule the country to travel around without, massive security and so on? And I think we can ask the same question here to the extent that those anti-Raila, fear-mongering and so on outputs had any impact, and I don't know that they did. I mean, it's not as if Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta are newcomers in the last election. People know their track record and so on and so forth. So I'll just maybe end by asking a question. How would an objective, unbiased analyst in the aftermath of such a campaign measure the impact of any particular video output or data manipulation?
Great. And that's a good question for you, Mark. How, how would perhaps that very violent Raila video, I mean, people say that the Raila supporters were diehard supporters, the President Uhuru Kenyatta supporters were diehard supporters, so that even if they saw a video one way or the other.
Yeah, I think, first of all, even before reaching that point, we need to understand the basics of this technology integration that was there. When we talk about psychometrics, we talk about psychographics, we talk about psychology or psychological profiling. We are talking about a mega thing. We are not just talking about a simple action that has been taken in reference to swaying people to vote against somebody or to turn up and vote for someone. Technologically, we are talking about data, which is the most valuable commodity today in the entire world. That means that that data can do anything. Now, probably you also need to understand some things to do with or social engineering. For example, if our data is exposed there as Kenyans, for example, if these guys say that they used Facebook, this application profiled people on Facebook. Today, you meet a lot of links on our social media platforms, and people click on these links and answer certain questions. What you don't understand is that this data goes to someone. And this data is also exposing other people. In the case of Cambridge Analytica, it exposed 300 per one individual who took the questions and answered them. Is 300 300 friends were exposed to.
Okay.
And these people probably also have other details.
All right.
Yes.
I'd like you to, so at least now we're having an understanding of just what was happening on Facebook. I'd like you to hold that thought. We want to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue to discuss this as well as its effects on democracy. And you remember that statement that was made about a survey of 50,000 people. 2 of them were done. We'll be asking about the importance of data like that in the